My name is Cat Sivertsen. I'm a visual artist living and working on the unceded ancestral lands of the Lheidli T'enneh First Nation in north central British Columbia, Canada. My current work is focused on sense of place, and as such, this quick presentation is my version of artist bookmaking through that lens. So, what is an artist book? An artist book is an artwork created by an artist that's presented in the form of a book. This particular book was created by artist Sarah Grace Dye, who's based in Germany. And Sarah makes beautiful artist books. Her illustrations are magical, and she is very creative and very prolific with the artist books that she's made. So I encourage you to have a look at her website to see more. The paintbrush is there to give you some context of size, and as such, an artist book could be microscopic, or it could fill a room, like in Anson Kiefer's lead books. So yeah, it's a 20th century phenomenon, created in the 50s, and I encourage you to have do a bit more research about what the there's so many versions of artist books, and it's a really tangible way of making an artwork and not being frightened by a white canvas, so to speak. So we're clear now, maybe a little bit more about what an artist book is, but it certainly is not a book about an artist. There's been a lot of writing about artists by writers, historians, biographers, but the artist book is created by a book. I mean, an artist could also write a book, but it might not be considered an artist book, and it has to be sort of a more creative version, I suppose. This description that I found on the Smithsonian Libraries and Archives website or blog post is very clear, and probably a lot more clear than I was. But anyway, so I'll just read it. An artist book is a medium of artistic expression that uses the form or function of book as inspiration. It is the artistic initiative seen in the illustration, choice of materials, creation process, layout, and design that makes it an art object. A book that only contains text is simply a book, even if it was authored by an artist. It would be a book that belongs in a bookstore or on the shelves of a library. Beautiful description. Oh, and by the way, all the other books that you're going to see are either my artist books, or artist books that were created by students, and I'll point those out in a moment. So for this particular workshop, I am very organized and very clear about how this works. We introduce ourselves and to each other, also to what artist books can be, materials and methods, and we do that through a series of warm-up exercises. There's a quick visualization to generate your story or your theme for the creative visual that you're going to make throughout the workshop, and then we bind it all together and put it all together. It's not necessarily a book binding, but it is a way of sort of creating the idea of book around it. And then we finish off with an exhibition and a crit. And this is more of a show and tell, and it's a critique, not a criticism. And it's all very positive and a wonderful way of wrapping up the session and recapping on what everyone learned, enjoyed, struggled with, and then we can move on and leave the space with some closure. So part of the warm-up exercises are actually making marks on paper. And the first mark making that we play with is a signature. And your signature is your individualism. And I'm very clear about that. And we play with that a little bit with materials. also using different surfaces, as you can see, sort of messing around with the book. I also introduce some materials that you might not be familiar with, and this is basically a Neocolor, a Caran d'Ache water soluble crayon that works beautifully and leaves such a density of mark, and it just moves beautifully over the paper. And also we have some exercises here using the old school of pen and ink, and it's a beautiful way of sort of playing with ink, but also using a familiar method of signatures and linear marks, and then looking at and playing with the materials and letting the materials do what they want to do. So the visualization is a guided visualization and about a walk, and a walk that you take in your mind or in your imagination, and then you write it down, and you just put that aside, and we will work on it as part of our inspiration for the whole workshop. And so the methods that I like to use are basic transfer methods. And obviously, drawing is a big component of art making. However, it can be very daunting, the idea of drawing and figuring that the amount of times I feel like I hear, I can't do that, or I can't draw, or I've never been very good at drawing. And this workshop or the methods that I use are just like nonsense. We don't care about that. What we do care about is creating a story or just playing with materials and freeing ourselves up. So these transfer methods are methods that I've devised over the years. And this particular one is just using the pen that we were just doing the lift print with and doing a transfer with that. This is transferring using photocopy paper or images copied for printed, and they leave a mark, but it's not very clear. So then we use another method using carbon paper, and nice bit of drawing, and then doing the transfer with that as well. So using materials more than once, and also a little bit of collage just to sort of tie it all together and give a nice layered effect. And so after the demos, then you are encouraged to just basically get on with it yourself and to choose the materials that you want to use, to choose the components of the story that you want to use. And as you can see, I have literally using a hummingbird and transferring some marks and some drawings. I mean, to draw those individually would take hours, and we don't have hours. This particular workshop is 4 hours long, and it's quite intense. So if we can ease up the timing to create something of more of a whole, then all the better for it. These are those Neocolor Caran d'Ache crayons that I talked about, and yeah, leaving lots of good marks. So now we're just going to tie it all together. As I said, bind it all to, well, not bind it all together, but make it have, keep it as one unit. And just by adding a bit of blue ink to both sides, that's tying it all together rather beautifully. Sort of the color of a robin's egg, really, on a hummingbird page. There we go. Okay, and so as I said, binding it all together, and we'll figure this part out before we get started about how you want to, have some ideas about how you want to bind it together. In this particular case, I did it after the fact, and it sort of leaves for some challenges, which is what the creative process is all about. And you can see too that there wasn't that much text being used throughout the book. The story goes, today I went on an extraordinary walk across a golden field in snow on a July day. And inside the circle, I was gifted lost memories of hummingbird down. So I love the idea of just leaving it a visual and a few words just sort of give some context, and then the viewer can actually make up their mind themselves and make it their own story rather than the one that you're going to tell them. Okay, and so as I said, the books on the outside are my versions or some of my versions of this workshop itself. The video is showing some examples of the workshop that went with this, an exhibition that I did in 2021 that I'll talk about in a minute. As you can see, it has story content, it has transfer methods, it also has a lot of collage using the actual materials from the garden. And this particular one was about going into a magical garden and being gifted um, something quiet, your own sort of gift. And you can see that some people used words, some people were more involved in the visual process. And the part that I love about this wonderful workshop is the variety of outcome and the range of experience in working. Some people have never done this kind of stuff before, and are just it becomes. I feel like I've gifted somebody a key to being able to do something new. And then we have other people that are very experienced and have formal education in the arts that can, and people can be sitting side by side. It's a very accessible workshop. This is an artist book that I created with 24 artists. I should say, and I'll correct that, I co-created with 24 artists from around the world: France, Germany, England, Scotland, and of course, Canada. The book is called The COVIDian Garden Party. It was based in a visualization that I had in 2012, 2013. And so I sent each artist that version of the story that is written in between each of their submissions, and this was their interpretation. The interesting part, though, is that it was their interpretation of during lockdown, and it was 2020 that this work was created. The work is called The COVIDian Garden Party, A Coming of Age, and it was installed with the rest of my idea about where the garden party was in 2021 at Two Rivers Gallery. So, as I said, artist books can be large, small, vast, or very intimate. I encourage you to do some more digging, and I'd love for you to enjoy one of these workshops with me. My contact details are below, my website on the left and my social media on the right. So thank you for listening, and remain creative.